Hi, and welcome to Transparent with Tina, a holistic approach for mental, physical, and spiritual well being so you can become the best version of yourself. Welcome, Paul Barattiero. No.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. And that's going in. So, everybody, I just did that 5 times. So, when we were talking before I pressed record, I said, "Is that the way you pronounce your name?" He says, "Yes." I get on and I flub it up the 6th time. So finally, we're going to leave it at that. Anyway, welcome, Paul. It's so great to have you on. As we were talking before, we're both friends with Dr. Daryl Geoffrey, and he actually was saying, I think you helped him write the first 2 chapters of his
Yeah.
book, right?
Yes. Co-authored. Yeah. He's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing and he thinks you're amazing. And I already think you're amazing. And I'm so excited to talk today. We're going to be talking about water. And for those of you that are watching or listening, you've got to stay tuned for this because you know what? This podcast is all about holistic health. And I think now more than ever in our country, we need new information. Um,
Yeah.
and first there was the alkaline machine way back when, because when I got breast cancer, I got a machine, and thank God I didn't have the radiation or anything. I just drank the alkaline water and I did an alkaline diet. And so I've been cancer free without doing anything harmful since
That's awesome.
2011. So I believe in the healing effects of water, food, supplements, and all of that. So
Yeah.
your brand is Echo Water and it's
Yeah.
hydrogen water. Okay. And a lot of
Yeah.
people have not heard of what hydrogen water. I think I heard about it the first time, maybe 6, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And so, why don't you tell us your journey of how you came across hydrogen water, and let's go from there.
Awesome. It's a great story. That's typically what I get asked the most is how the heck did you know about this? So the story starts 20 years ago. So I've been doing this a long time, and most everyone has no idea because most people have heard about it in the last 1 to 2 years, right? I've been doing this 20 years, and Echo Water is 16 years old of a brand. We were the original hydrogen water company and the largest in the world today. And everybody you could imagine, like we talked about Dr. Joffrey, I met him 8 years ago and helped him when his dad was passing. That's how him and I connected. Was I was one of the experts in the Truth About Cancer documentaries. I was in every one of the Truth About Cancers, and he came to a live event in Texas, which was the first one that they did, and his dad was sick with
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah, it's esophageal cancer.
Yeah,
He shared the
yeah. And
story. Yeah.
so, yeah, he came to me and said, I think your water can help my dad. He's got 6 weeks to live. And he lived another 2 years. We got him on the water. We got him, and he was like, he was like, Dr. Paul, that was priceless. I don't even know 2 more years with my dad. That's more value than anything you could ever put a dollar on, right?
And
So
they gave him 6 weeks.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and so it was a wonderful thing. That's how him and I met. And then later he said, "Can you help me write about hydrogen water in my book?" But this was many years ago now, right? And so
Why didn't I hear about what?
I don't know because I was in the Truth About Cancer, and then we had so many celebrities, so many people like Dr. Wakefield who made Vaxxed, like all these people were drinking my water and Del Bigtree, all these people in the natural medicine world. Like if we start naming all the people, they all have had my water for many years. And when we talk about Elle Macpherson, she loved the water. I mean, all these people that are in the natural medicine movement, were doing it. So the way I got into it, my sweetheart, my queen, the love of my life, was sick. So I've been married 31 years now.
Wow.
In February, a month ago, was 31 years. The
Congratulations.
first 10 years of our marriage, my wife was really sick to the point where on her menstrual cycle, we would lose her for a week each month. It was very difficult for her to get out of bed, to do anything. She had adenomyosis, she had thyroid issues, she had anemia, she had all kinds of stuff going on. And so it was highly disruptive to her life and us and the family. And so we had some friends that we went to church with, after 9/11, and after 9/11, their was basically cut in half because half of their revenue was people coming to Disney World. We lived in Orlando at the time, and did people were coming to Disney World and getting organic food from their organic food store. Well, obviously after 9/11, people weren't going anywhere. People were not traveling to Disney World, and so people weren't buying organic food from them. They came to us and said, "Can you help us so we don't go under?" And I said, "Well, I can help you with part of what you need, but you're going to have to find someone else to help you with the rest." And of course, the typical, we'll pay you back in like 3 or 4 months. And a year later, it wasn't yet. And so I forgave all the interest and said, just pay back the principal and just start paying. Don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be by a certain date. Just, just whatever, just get it paid back. So it was another year or so, and they paid it all back. And as a thank you, they took my wife and I on a cruise. And this was 2005 when
Mhm.
they took us on this cruise out of Fort Lauderdale. It was the Carnival Liberty ship, the kind of the maiden voyage from the US on the Liberty ship. It was a 9-day cruise, and unfortunately, we didn't choose the dates because the first day of the cruise was a Sunday, and my wife was starting her cycle. So driving from Orlando down to Fort Lauderdale, she was doubled over in pain in the back seat of our vehicle, and we assumed she's going to miss 3/4 of this cruise on her cycle. And I was like, how horrible is that, right? So we get on the ship, and our friends bring a suitcase, and they hand us a suitcase. They're like, here. And we are like, what's that? And they're like, it's water. And we're like, what? What? You're bringing water on the cruise? Like, that's so odd, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever. And we took that to our room. And here's my sweetheart just laying in the bed. And I'm going to art auctions, coming back. I'm trying to do something, but I don't want to just leave her in the
Leave
room
her.
all by herself because
Mhm.
that's not cool, right? So
Right.
anyways, she gets thirsty and she's like, "Hey, where's that water that they gave us?" And I was like, "Oh, it's right here. I'll get it for you." So I had her drink some water. I drank some water. I didn't levitate off the ground. I didn't sprout wings and fly. Nothing crazy happened. And I'm a guy, so we're pretty skeptical people. And so I was like, whatever. My wife, on the other hand, drank that water and she was like, "Honey, I'm craving. My body wants more of that water." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I felt nothing, right? But I was like, "Okay, great."
Right. Yeah, but
So
when you're healthy and it's preventative, you don't feel
right,
anything. But if you're
right,
sick, yeah, right. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, she's drinking this water, and within a day and a half of the cruise, 2 days, she's up and participating like she's normal. And I'm like,
Wow.
what in the heck
Talk about
is going on?
synchronicity.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, this was awesome because we're gonna have a great cruise. And I mean, we went to Panama Canal, we went to Costa Rica, we had a blast on this cruise, and I was just so thankful. So here we are eating lots of bagels at breakfast, and I'm like asking my friends, so what the heck's up with this water? And they're like, "Oh, it's amazing. That's what saved our company. That's how we could pay you back was this water." And I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" And they're like, "We don't actually know, but it helps all these people with all their stuff that's wrong. And we have like 200 people a day that are coming and filling up water bottles and paying us $2 a gallon." And I'm like, "What? Like, what in the world are you talking about?" Right? So, but they weren't medical based people, so they didn't have a clue of what was going on. And so all I
Where were they getting it?
they had bought this was goes back many years. They had bought a machine that was an alkaline water machine
Okay.
that they had. And so they were saying, "Oh, it's the pH." And I said, "No, that's impossible.
So
Medically,
the
we
water she
know that."
was drinking was alkaline?
Yes, and the
Okay, good.
company's long out of business now
Right, right.
but the point is they were saying, "Oh, all these miracle things were happening." And I said, "Well, why? Why do you think that's happening?" And they're like, "Oh, we don't know. The guy who sold us the machine said it was the pH." And I'm like, "No, that's not even possible. There's no way possible." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there's no way that is doing anything in the human body because it's not going to get through stomach acid. Literally within 1 second, the pH of the water will be buffered by stomach acid and it's never passing through the stomach."
Okay,
And
hold on. So alkaline water doesn't do anything for you.
no, no. But if the water, when we're talking about the pH of the water, it
Yes.
does. Yeah, there's absolutely zero benefit to the
Wow.
body. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
First
that
time I've
was
heard.
like one of the biggest nonsensical things in the planet. And that's been proven since the 80s. There's studies back from the 80s, and yet people are still buying into it. People are still selling machines for thousands of dollars, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, anyways, and in fact, when we talk about cancer, the more alkaline your cells are, the more you'll get cancer. That's unfortunately the truth from a medical perspective. It's called alkalosis. Cancer thrives in alkalosis. So the more alkaline you try to get your cells, which is pretty difficult actually, the more cancer will thrive. And so if we really understand cancer and what Otto Warburg, because the biggest company out there selling alkaline machines tries to quote Otto Warburg, but they completely misquote him. He never said anything about the pH of a cell. He talked about oxygen in the cell. And what he got the Nobel Prize for was proving that cancer thrives in an oxygen rich or an oxygen poor environment. In other words, it's sugar that feeds cancer, not
Yes.
oxygen.
Yeah. That's
That's what he proved. It's called glycolysis. So cancer thrives on sugar, not on oxygen. And so somehow they took that to mean pH, which I don't understand how they got there, but that's what they try to say to people. But it's completely false information because cancer, the only reason cancer thrives is because apoptosis is turned off in the human cell. And so those cells don't destroy themselves like they're supposed to. Well, one of the beautiful things about hydrogen is hydrogen will turn back on apoptosis. So these cancer cells will destroy themselves.
yes.
Yeah, so in the world of alkaline water, you have zero studies ever saying that the pH of the water did anything. Yet we have 1,400 over 1,400 studies currently showing that hydrogen is therapeutic with over 200 disease models currently.
Okay. So I'm a little okay. So I'm gonna go back to when you said your body can be too alkaline because you said the cancer
It's
thrive.
very difficult. It's very difficult for that
Okay,
to
so
ever.
I want to make sure because I'm doing Dr. D's greens, everything for alkalinity.
Well, if you're, oh, the greens won't. The greens. So, and Daryl and I have talked about this on many podcasts we've done. It's not going to make your blood alkaline. It's not going to make your body alkaline. What greens would do is they would give your body minerals,
Mm-hmm.
and the body can utilize minerals to adjust its own pH.
Oh,
But
okay.
by virtue of drinking something with minerals or eating vegetables, it's not going to make your pH go up. Because if you really understand vegetables, what pH is a cucumber, for example? What's your guess?
I have no idea. I have no
Five
idea.
and a half. It's a
But
five and a
okay,
half.
five and a half.
So
And
that
you
would
want to
be
be
acid.
around seven. Your body wants to be around 7.5.
No, 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 no.
Oh,
It depends on what organ we're talking about.
okay.
See, every organ operates at a different pH. If you're talking about blood, blood can only be 7.35 to 7.45, or you go into shock.
Okay. Yes.
So, people saying you're going to change your blood pH by something you drink, it's not even remotely possible because that's not how blood pH is regulated. It's by your breath and carbonic acid when you're breathing and exhaling. That's how blood pH is regulated is by, so you could breathe one more time a minute and affect your pH of your blood way more than anything you're going to drink. And let's be
Oh,
grateful that that's the way it works because if imagine if you drank something that's a 9 pH and it raised your pH, if you drank a soda, you'd be dead. One soda, gone.
hmm.
Because the soda is a 1.5.
Right.
So if something you put in your stomach could raise or lower pH that rapidly, we'd all be dead after one soda or one lemon juice or one whatever that has
Okay.
low pH. So we've got to get out of our mind that pH has anything to do when it comes to what we put in our mouth.
Okay.
Our body will regulate pH on its own, and it will utilize calcium just like in a an aquarium, right? We can raise pH by putting calcium in the water.
Hmm.
It's called a buffering agent. Well, your body has bones and it can pull calcium out of bones. That's what osteoporosis
Yeah.
is.
Right.
The body's harvesting calcium to help regulate itself when it's in trouble. But the reality is what you're eating and drinking is going to have almost no effect
On
on
your
body on the pH of organs because
pH.
every organ is very different.
Hmm.
Your colon, all these things are very different pH. So
Okay.
that's why the conversation about pH is really a waste of time. What we need is hydrogen. So let me go back and tell you. So on this cruise, my friends had no idea how this stuff worked. Later, I helped them understand it wasn't pH. And I started to do a deep dive for a year and a half because what happened after that cruise, my wife felt great on the cruise. And I was like, yoo-hoo, great. End of story for that. Don't care about the water because they were talking alkaline. And I was like, that's nonsense. There's no way, right? And so we move on. 6 months later, my sweetheart has a normal menstrual cycle. Like literally our life, we were talking about, hey, when's your cycle? And she's like, I'm on it. And we're like, what? You left the house, kind of a thing. Like, what are you talking about? So all of a sudden for me, I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? And she goes, oh, I've been going and getting that water. And I'm like, what? You're still drinking that water? And she's like, yeah, I go to their store and get a gallon of it, and that's what I do. I keep on drinking it. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on because not only did it help my sweetheart on the cruise, but now it's changed our family's life because she's not in bed 1 week out of the month. Like, this is a big deal. And of course,
Right.
I'm in love with her. So I'm like, wait a minute, that's crazy. I didn't know what to do about this. I want to figure out what it is and then help millions of other people because there's got to be a lot of husbands that are like, what do I do? I don't know.
Hmm.
And so here we are 20 years later, and we fully understand. At that time, I did a deep dive, and what I came to understand is that that machine that they were selling, it was an alkaline system. But if you understand electrolysis, to make the water alkaline, you got to produce hydroxides. So you are producing hydrogen. Doesn't mean hydrogen's in the water, but because hydrogen was produced, it'll change the ORP of the water, the oxidation reduction potential. That ORP change was
Is
enough to help my wife's gut begin to rebound, but there was no hydrogen in the water, so it was limited effects. Once I got her a system that actually produced or had hydrogen, oh, now thyroid issues, all the other things started to help. So that was really the aha moment for me. It was about a year and a half after, 2 years after the cruise, about 2007. And all of a sudden I was like finding things with hydrogen. And when I would look at the studies that the alkaline water companies would give out, most of it was all complete rubbish studies and it wasn't real. But there was one study we found that talked about hydrogen gas being present in the water, and that's where the benefits came from. And so as soon as I heard that, I just tingled all over my body. You get the goosebumps and you
you
just
know you're
feel,
on
oh,
to something. Yeah.
yeah, I'm on to something. So next thing you know, I began doing research and I come to find out that in 1800, Anthony Carlisle discovered water electrolysis to harvest hydrogen out of water because he knew it was antioxidant. Hydrogen was antioxidant. Next thing you know, Dr. Mishisu in Japan in 1930 began doing research using Dr. Carlisle's work from 1800, and he began seeing what happens to rice cultivation, and then it went to plants, and then it went to people, and by 1950 they did a 15-year human trial in the hospitals, and they shared that they had cured improper fermentation in the gut. That's what the 15-year human trial showed. But what was amazing is we understood, and what was believed at that point was that it was the pH because that was the easiest thing to test. In 1965, it wasn't so easy to test hydrogen gas. It was easy to test pH of water. Years later, they publish it's not the pH. Uh, and so by 2009, I was already lecturing about hydrogen. and how hydrogen can help you. And people were like, "You're an idiot, right? It's the pH of water that helps people." And I'm like, "No, it's not the pH. It has nothing to do with it. All that happens in these electrolysis systems is you have some hydrogen produced, but within 2 or 3 weeks of getting these water alkaline machines, you'll have calcium buildup on the cathode and you'll lose the ability to dissolve hydrogen. But these machines, not
Lose
all of
the
them, but
ability to what?
to dissolve hydrogen gas.
Dissolve high. Okay.
So you will lose. So if you were to buy a brand new, $4,000 alkaline water machine from the company that's the biggest one selling them today, you have 3 weeks, 6 weeks maximum to have hydrogen in that machine. And
And
you'll
then
have
after that, it's gone.
you lose the hydrogen because you'll have calcium buildup on the electrodes. And even in their warranty, they say you have to clean the machine every 2 weeks if you want hydrogen in their
Well,
warranty. But no one,
mine was leaking, and I saw where it was
yeah,
leaking. I saw the calcium.
correct,
Now that
correct.
okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And so when that calcium's there, you don't have hydrogen. You just have very poorly filtered water and high pH because it will always make higher pH, but it will not always make hydrogen. So 2009, I began lecturing and I began developing Echo as a brand to focus on hydrogen because if that's what the mechanism of healing is, let's stop talking about pH. Let's talk about hydrogen gas. So that's what I did. By 2011, we began shipping machines. The Echo 7 was the first brand. So that's 2011. And Dr. Mercola, Joe Mercola, was the first
Oh
person to
yeah.
ever have it. Yeah, he was the first one to ever have an Echo branded machine in his home. I put it there myself. And he lived about an hour from us. And so we were on a double date. And there you go. So now of course, we're the largest company. And we were the largest company then, but no one knew about hydrogen water. The first study that was published by Nature Medicine in 2009 was that hydrogen was a selective antioxidant. It only reacted with reactive oxygen species, the really nasty radicals, and that's what hydrogen did. Well, of course, I lecture all the time now on podcasts all the time talking about the fact that really our bodies are designed to produce hydrogen. And
Okay.
that's flatulence. That's flatulence. So we can call it fart therapy now that you know it's good for you. But the point is we are supposed to fart
Huh.
because it's like a tailpipe in a car. If you plug that thing up,
Oh
there's a
yeah.
problem. So same with our body. If we're not having gases come out of our body, we're not properly digesting, we're not fermenting foods properly in our gut.
I can't wait to
We
tell
need
my son this.
I know he'll be so happy. Mom, you're the best. So the bottom line is we are supposed to produce hydrogen, and the purpose of hydrogen in our body is to regulate oxidation and inflammation.
Yes.
That's where disease comes from. If we
Yes.
really understand why our body's supposed to produce hydrogen, it's not to have smelly things coming out of us, it and bother our wife or girlfriends or whatever. It is to regulate or modulate antioxidant pathways, oxidative stress, inflammation, brain function, heart function, cholesterol levels. Hydrogen does all these things on its own. When we have gut dysfunction, we lose the ability to produce hydrogen the way we're supposed to, and we lose the ability for all those systems to be managed properly. And so, what is the leading cause of disease? The combination of oxidative stress and chronic
And
inflammation.
chronic
The
inflammation.
one thing that hydrogen manages or stops or prevents from happening is what causes disease. So, if we simply remove oxidative stress and chronic inflammation,
Hmm. You
then
remove the
disease goes
disease.
away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's 125 studies on cancer
Yeah.
alone. And it's because oxidative stress and chronic inflammation is what causes cancer in the first place. Hydrogen can regulate that. And so it's very anti-cancer. Now you have many studies on cancer types, but there's a study on colon cancer, for example, which talks about the fact that supplementation with hydrogen-rich water can inhibit colon cancer. I mean, that's very strong language, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So this is why we want everyone drinking. So in a perfect world, we would all be farting and have flatulence the way your son does, and
No, no.
people would.
When I do it, he goes, Mom. That's what I'm saying. He's going to be, I'm
There
going
you
to say,
go.
Hey, the doctor says I should be
That's
doing this.
right.
Don't give me any
There you
grief here.
go.
Yeah.
There you go, bro. I'm so healthy. I'm farting. So
Right. So
the
that's how you
reality,
know if you're healthy, you're farting.
well,
Throwing a little
depending
humor.
on what's in the farts, yes. But the reality is if there's hydrogen gas, we're good.
Right.
Most people, 90 plus percent of the population have a dysfunctioning gut, and they're not really digesting and fermenting food properly. So when they drink the hydrogen water,
Yes.
real hydrogen water, within 2 weeks, you can have gluten and dairy issues gone. You can have food allergies gone. You start to have mitochondrial function come back. You start to have brain within 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You have your brain working the way it's supposed to. There's so many things that hydrogen is responsible for in the human body that when we lose the ability to create it, we begin to dismantle the person. And so
Yeah.
that
Hold on 1 second.
is,
So how do, at what age do we start to lose it? The
well,
hydrogen.
there's not an age.
There's not.
It's pesticides. It's what we're putting in our body,
The bodies, they're free radicals,
what we're
the
breathing and what we're eating,
pollution.
the
Yeah.
lotions we put on our skin. If we put, I mean, it depends on how chemicals are getting into the body, but the reality is pesticides and overuse of antibiotics are probably
Ah,
the
yes.
culprits.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
this conversation so many times with Dr. Daryl, and
Yeah.
it's, it wipes out your gut flora for
Yep.
2 years.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
this is my frustration. And I'm so glad there's people like you out there. And this is why I do this podcast, because how many times I have said, why don't you do this? Or don't take the antibiotic. Well, if that were true, my doctor would know.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Because he knows everything.
Right, right.
Or
And they
she.
weren't, my explanation is not a get bad guy or she, they weren't
Right.
taught this in medical school.
They're not taught, and unless they go to a trade show or convention and someone's teaching them, how would they know?
Right.
I
Like a
mean, do
biohacking
people,
conference.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Do people honestly think doctors just sit around on their free time and look up all the ways to help their patients?
Exactly.
No, they're getting home to go to the soccer games and help their wife with whatever, because trust me, after seeing 50 patients in a day and it's like a cattle call, they're barely getting home to do whatever dinner or whatever their wife's asking them or their children need or whatever.
Right.
They've got a pretty rough life.
Let me ask you a question. So what did it come down to your wife's gut? Is
Yes.
that's so you would say 90% is
Oh, 100%. It's
I,
her
I
gut
would
issue.
say it's 100, right? And I've spoken about this before because Dr. D, when I met him, I was in a really bad place. I had terrible anxiety. I had depression. I mean, I like literally was not leaving the house.
So that's all gut.
I know. And I found like I had SIBO, I had leaky gut, I had
Yep.
all that. And
Yep.
I went on his protocol. I'm a different person. And
Yep.
people, I'm watching them die. And let me ask you a question, a little bit off the subject, but the vaccination, which you talked about earlier. Well, now my one brother took one shot and he wants to get it out of him.
Mhm.
And Dr. D was suggesting certain things. Will the hydrogen water help with that? If they to get the peptide?
I don't think, I mean, the hydrogen water will help with heart and it'll help with your immune system so your immune system can kick it out.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're drinking the hydrogen water, it'll greatly increase immune function. It'll increase brain function, energy level in the body because mitochondrial function. But when you're talking about the particular issues with the shot, and I don't even call it a vaccine because it wasn't a vaccine.
Right.
Um, I would say when you're talking about the proteins that
Spike
affect
proteins. That's what I
heart,
was saying. I said peptides. I meant spike proteins. Yes.
yes, exactly. The
Yeah.
the spike protein, there um there is there's a lady that has a product she's developed that she says can undo that.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know that hydrogen particularly can do, but I will tell you, once you have an issue with spike proteins, there are ways to get rid of them. And if you increase your immune function, if you increase your body you can have a lot of help. Of course, I did not choose to have that put in my
Neither did I.
body.
I didn't either.
And yeah, and there's nothing that could have caused me to do that because it made zero sense.
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of people did, and some people have issues and some people don't, and that's just the way life is. But I would tell you that um, we didn't have massive deaths. We didn't have like millions of people dying. There's people that have a lot of issues. There's people that have all kinds of things, and if you're one of those people, I would definitely encourage you to get help from people that know how to help that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not my area of expertise. I do have a doctor friend in South Carolina that has created a electrical magnetic sphere type product that you can purchase for a few $100s. And she is saying that it helps with all that stuff and has had like miracle stories of people that couldn't walk around, they were on oxygen. And I've seen them with my own eyes. So I'm not just passing on information that I haven't verified on my own. I will tell you, in my own home, she was visiting, and there was a gentleman that was an attorney for one of the cities nearby. And he was like 42 years old. I don't know if that's exactly correct, but he's in his 40s. And he literally entered my home to see her because a friend of ours told him about her that she was visiting. And could barely walk. He was on an oxygen cylinder. He came in with an oxygen cylinder. He couldn't breathe without that oxygen tank. And literally 1 hour later, he was walking out without his oxygen tank. He was happy camper, like saying, "Oh my gosh, I have so much energy." So I do believe there are things that can stop the negative effects, and I can share that with you after this. But
Yes. Yeah.
and maybe you can have her on your podcast
Yeah.
next. So
You read my mind.
yeah,
You read
so
my mind.
the whole point is I help her because I love her and care about her. She's an incredible doctor who was a chiropractor and got kicked out of California because she healed her son of cancer many years ago, and they kicked her out. Basically, were threatening to take her license. She went to South Carolina, set up practice, and had a practice for many years. Just sold that, but the reality is she's a very gifted, incredible doctor, and she's also a sweetheart friend of mine. And she's technically the first chiropractor to ever put Echo Water in her office 16 years ago. And so we've been friends that long.
Wow.
But she is an incredible woman and has created this device that helps people. And I've seen it help people. So I don't sell it. I don't, I'm not saying anything other than I've seen it help people. So that might, people that are in hospice,
Right.
ready to die in 2 weeks, who are right now thriving and living a good life, but they were literally bedbound and were in hospice.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
crazy, crazy
Wow.
stuff. So, anyways, her name is Dr. Kate Kevel, and I'll introduce you to her. But
Please.
as far as hydrogen goes, I don't know. I don't know that we're making any comments on that, but
Okay.
there's many other things, basically anything else that matters in the body.
Well, like we have
Hydrogen.
brain function. It helps with brain function. It helps with
Oh yeah.
pain in the body. Um,
Yep.
and it helps obviously with the gut. Let me ask you a question. So if somebody's gut, which most people's are what's the right word you would say? Not infected. Your gut is out of alignment. What your gut
Functioning.
dysfunctioning.
Uh, you don't have the right bacteria. Let's be honest. That's what a gut issue is. You have the wrong bacteria.
Right. So if you don't fix that and you just, let's say, have the hydrogen water, what happens? Would it help the gut or does the
Oh
gut
yeah.
need to
Within
be
2 weeks.
within two
Within two
weeks?
weeks.
Okay.
People that are gluten and dairy intolerant, people that have food allergies, people that having, aerobic bacteria instead of anaerobic,
Right.
that's the problem. And it'll completely change that,
Wow.
starting within an hour of drinking the water. So we have people that have serious gut issues. One of them was Zach Efron, a good friend, become a good friend of mine now. He
Yep.
had serious gut issues. And he told me, Paul, you can tell this story to anybody because you changed my life. He was effectively on a mono diet.
A what?
And a mono. He was eating one type of food that wouldn't cause him inflammation, right?
Uh-huh.
And imagine he's got all the money in the world, but he still had gut issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we were able to do is, of course, gave him a hydrogen bottle, and I told him 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And he called me back in 2 weeks and was like, I just finished eating food I haven't been able to eat in 10 years. Thank you. I feel great. And so, bless his heart, I think he's a heart-centered person. I think he's an amazing guy. At least
Mm-hmm.
he has been for me. And I think he's a good person. Anyways, we were able to help him like we could help anyone else. And that's the beauty of hydrogen is it is supposed to be in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Without it, you're missing a major part of you. And so you're going to have a lot of issues. You just are going to have issues. So we have 22 studies on Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ADHD, autism, all these kind of things. And these issues can be helped with hydrogen gas for sure. And you
Well,
talked about spike protein, right? The thing I would say about that is everything else. The spike protein creates oxidative stress and inflammation in the body, and hydrogen will reduce that. So it will reduce the effects of spike proteins until you get rid of them or what have you. But at least the hydrogen will do that. The same is true, like people that have tremors. Within 10 minutes of drinking the water, their hands are still because you're affecting the brain in 3 minutes of drinking the water. As soon as the water hits the stomach, ghrelin secretions go to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and brain stem to change plasticity, 32%, alpha and beta waves, normalization of brain function, 58%. This is in 3 minutes.
it changes the brain waves.
Correct. Well, brain function, the
Right.
cognitive function.
And I'm sitting there, I just had an epiphany as you're talking because, okay, so I've got my flask right here, and I
Yeah.
think I've been drinking it for a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And it's seriously I just had this download as you were talking because I was journaling this morning. And
Hmm.
I've got to say, I have a very sensitive nervous system. I'm an HSP and an empath, and just
Hmm.
realized that a couple years ago. And I was journaling this morning, and what was coming out, I've never felt so calm.
Hmm.
And I have, according to Dr. Amen, it's either 3 or 4 different kinds of ADD. Okay. And I take GABA. That's about it. But I am
Yeah.
telling you, I feel like the switch just went on for me. I
Yeah.
just feel like and I'm not now. If I wasn't talking to you, honestly, I wouldn't go, it's because of the water. But now
Right.
that we're talking, I'm going, yeah, okay, so this is the flask that I have. And I
Yeah.
love it. It only takes 10 minutes. You plug it in. I love watching the
Right.
telescope. How many of these should I drink a day?
3 to 6.
Oh, I should. Okay, okay. So can I overdo it? Can you overdo it? Three of
No.
these, not three glass. Yeah, because this is it looks like a
12
lot,
ounces.
but it's really kind of like a tall glass of water. So
Right.
3 to
Right. It's
6.
12 ounces.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't overdo this.
No.
Now, how long will this last?
That has a 5-year warranty. So that bottle will produce hydrogen with no reduction or degradation for 5.5 years minimum. The proton exchange membrane that's inside of there, this is a patented technology, but the proton exchange membrane is good for 2,000 to 5,000 hours of use. So I'm just quoting you on 1,000. I cut that in half and say, if that unit worked for 1,000 hours, you'd have 3 times a day for 5.5 years without a drop in hydrogen. Because there's some people out there that are inappropriately saying that these bottles, the proton exchange membrane bottles, will lessen in their performance within 6 months. It's completely false information. It's false. I've been selling these type of bottles since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would know
Mm-hmm.
if,
Right.
yeah, if there was a problem in 6 months. Bottom line, there's not. The proton exchange membrane that's in there that is separating hydrogen from oxygen is going to last thousands of hours, and you're only running 10 minutes at a time.
Right. And well, so when am I going to know when it's time for a new one?
Probably when the battery stops accepting a charge.
Oh, okay, good. All right. And just, you and I were talking early before we started recording. And I don't name brands, but I had told you that before I got yours, I've been using this one
Yeah. Yeah.
for months. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like again, so I said to you, what's the difference between this one and yours? Because there's
Oh,
a
and
lot of shiny objects out there, right?
oh yeah. There are vast differences. So first of all, the one that you have, the Echo Flask, is a proton exchange membrane unit. That other unit is not. It is an electrolysis based. And what that means is, yes, you'll see little bubbles, but you don't know what those bubbles are. They
Mm,
can be chlorine, they can be ozone, they can be oxygen, hydrogen, whatever it is, you don't know. But because the bubbles come up, people think it's the same thing because there's not proper education out there.
right, right.
But I will tell you that bottle that you have is an electrolysis base, which means you are creating chlorine. And
Well, when
I
you
have,
say
of
chlorine, that sounds bad, right?
course, it's bad.
So this is, I've been putting that into my body for months
Yes,
and it's bad for
yeah,
me. See,
it's
this is
not
where I get
good.
angry.
Right. It's a scam product. Honestly, it's a scam product because they're selling it as a hydrogen bottle, but it's not a hydrogen bottle. You will
Right,
have very little hydrogen,
right.
like 1/20th of what's in our bottle
And
or
right,
flask.
1/20th and the other stuff that's not good for you too.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, let me reach over here. I've had some fun. I have fun in weird ways, but I had some fun where I carry this with me all the time just because I'm a crazy guy. Right here is a simple chlorine reagent.
Okay. So you drop that in there to test the chlorine.
Oh, and guess what? When it turns yellow, like a pool water would, and people are
Okay,
like,
now you got me going. I'm going to get one of those and I'm going to put it in this
right,
water.
right. And then you're gonna see it turns yellow because of chlorines being produced. And people are so I have people that come up to our booths at a trade show and they're like, look, I have this bottle that I paid $300 for. Yours is 300. And I'm like, oh, let me show you something. Want to have fun? And they're like,
Yeah.
fun? I'm like, yeah. Let's pour some of your water into this little glass right here, and let me put some reagent. And it's yellow, and then I pour mine in, and it's not. It's clear. And they're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have chlorine in my water."
Yes, yes. It's
No,
what they used to do for the demonstration with the alkaline too. If it
yeah,
turned
yeah, yeah.
purple, if it turned green.
Right, right. Well, that's
Yeah,
different. That's
yeah.
pH. This is actual chlorine. And they'll say, "Where did the
Oh,
chlorine come
okay. Yeah,
from?" And I'm saying, "You're making it in your bottle. I'm not making it in my bottle."
yeah,
They're like, "Yeah, it kind of has a weird taste to it." And I'm like, "Well, that's because it's chlorine. It doesn't taste good."
yeah. No,
They're like,
yours tastes amazing. It's like
"Yeah,
mountain spring water. It's like if you
there you
were
go.
like to ever, let me ask you. So I have an alkaline machine, which we've already gone over
Yeah,
that. So I
yeah.
turn it to purified water, and that's what I put in here. Is that what I should be
That's
putting?
okay. That's fine.
What do you put in
I don't
there?
know. I don't know which alkaline machine, but if it's the one that's the largest, the multi-level marketing
No, I
one,
don't,
or
it's not.
which
It's
which one
pretty
do you
old.
have?
I don't know which one it
Oh,
is. I have to go
okay.
look.
So it
Well, I'm
all
not
depends on
putting tap
how.
water in here, right?
No, I please don't ever do that. But here's the thing: you're much too nice for that. Don't put tap water for yourself. But here's the thing: depending on how good the filter is in that machine, it might be equivalent to what your fridge filter will do. Because typically the alkaline water machines only have carbon and maybe calcium sulfite. I mean, it's really
That's the
basic.
argument my son had. He says, Mom, this is purified. That's purified. Because he always drinks it out of the refrigerator. So would you say the refrigerator water is okay?
I,
What do you
why?
use?
What do I use?
Yeah,
Oh, well, that's okay. So with Echo, we make whole house filtration systems and softeners. And then we have a reverse osmosis system that goes under sink. So in my home, I have a softener, a whole house filter. Then under my sink in the kitchen, I have an Echo RO, which is a $500 reverse osmosis system that's tankless. So it makes a quarter gallon a minute of pure water. Not what you're talking about. Yours is filtered water. This is pure water to where you have taken out all of the contaminants. It's $500, goes under the sink, And then it goes up to our machine that puts hydrogen in it, and all that's under sink. All I see is a beautiful faucet on top of my counter that matches the other faucet that's there. And I just go get water out of a digital faucet because
You
I
don't have to plug it in or anything.
plug what in.
Yeah, well, like this, you have to plug it in. But
Well, the other two devices,
that one creates the hydrogen. It's all you have to do is turn on the
it's
faucet.
plugged into electrical outlet underneath the
Oh,
sink.
gotcha. Okay.
So
So,
you've
but you
got the
don't have,
reverse,
yeah.
yeah, you've got an RO, and then we have another system that is under the sink, and then we have a beautiful touch screen faucet on top of the counter that all the water comes out, and that's where we get our water. And then, of course, I have a flask that I travel with, and we have a pitcher. So you have one that's 12 ounces. We have a pitcher that's a half a gallon that's battery operated, so it can make the hydrogen water half a gallon at a time. And then we have three different machines that can be countertop or under sink. And then we have different levels of filtration. So personally, I don't trust any water to put in my body unless it's as close to contaminant free as I can get it. And that
Mhm.
would mean a distiller or a reverse osmosis. I choose reverse osmosis because there's a lot less maintenance
Right.
with a reverse osmosis system. And so we sell one at like 500 bucks that goes under sink. It takes up very little room, and it doesn't, there isn't a tank under the sink like typical reverse osmosis systems. This one is making a quarter gallon a minute. So it's
Mhm.
on demand. When you need water, it turns on. When you don't need water, it doesn't, because there's no storage of water inside. That's what I drink. And I'll tell you, when you drink that water, you become a water snob because it tastes so good. Your body wants that.
Mhm.
And so you kind of get used to it. And then when you go to other places and they try to give you something else, you're like, oh my gosh, your body is just like, oh, there's
Yeah.
no way I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, is there any other ways we can get hydrogen naturally besides water? Or is there any other ways we
In
can
your
get it?
gut. If your gut was working properly, you would make it in your gut.
Oh, well, then I should be fine. And if I'm not, it's
So
Dr. Darrell.
the problem is because people ask us all the time, once you fix my gut in 2 weeks, can I just
Stop
rent
doing
one of
it.
your machines for two? Yeah, of course, that's how people think. I just will stop. And I say, well, if you will agree that you will never again eat a non-organic, non-GMO, if you won't put anything in your mouth that has pesticides, pharmaceuticals, heavy metals, contaminants, then sure. Once you get your gut reset, you can't use antibiotic. You can't eat foods in plastic
Right.
container.
Well,
There's so
yeah.
many things you can't do.
Well, and this will help if somebody's had a round of antibiotic or they've had surgery or whatever. This is going to help the gut along, obviously, with
It'll
probiotics.
repair, hydrogen gas will repair the gut. So the whole reality is you just start drinking this water, and whatever issues you're throwing at your body, the hydrogen will
We'll
help
take care
right.
of it.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so that's really what you want to do. And then your body starts producing hydrogen and you're drinking hydrogen. You've got it the way you need it.
What a fascinating talk with you. Seriously.
Thank
I mean,
thank you.
you've blown my mind. And that's why, like I said, I do this podcast because every time I turn around, there's something new to learn that is not
Correct.
being introduced or not being mentioned on mainstream media. And, it is so confusing if you go on social media. Oh, try this. And there, just like a vitamin C. Well, there's, a
Right.
plethora of different ones and they've got fillers and this and that. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that,
I think
it's
they
interesting because the more that I do this, the more I get connected to people like you and the more that I find that, you know, people that I,
right.
know. So yeah, I would, when we're done, I would like to get that doctor's
Sure.
woman's
Oh
name.
yeah.
And
She's
so
awesome.
anyway, how people can find you is is it echo.com or echowater.com? Echo
EchoWater.com.
Water.
And
Okay.
they can also go to hydrogen studies with an s.com. That's another site that I own. And all the studies are there. They can research them. They can see, what organs. All you do is type in organ pathway disease model and see if hydrogen affects those things. It's a public service where it's just a research page, but you just go to www.hydrogenstudies.com with
Okay.
an S.com, and you can research those studies. And then for the products, it's Echo Water, ECHO, echowater.com.
Okay, perfect. And you've been so generous. You and your team have been so generous that you're offering a promo. I'm going to be leaving that link. If you click on the link, you're
Yeah,
going to get a percentage off your entire order. So,
nice.
thank you so much for creating the time because I know you got a very, very busy schedule. Doctor, I'm going to call you Dr. Paul because I call him Dr.
There you
D.
go.
Okay. Thank you so
Perfect.
much, Dr. Ball,
Thank
for
you.
being here. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do. And have a fabulous day. And we'll see you next week. Okay, so I have one last question. Why is this bottle plastic and not glass?
That is such a good question, Tina. And that gets asked multiple times a day. So it is the perfect question to ask because there are other glass bottles out there, right?
Right?
Well, here's the problem. When you have a non-hydrogen product that's being sold as a hydrogen product, they're not building up pressure inside the container like to actually dissolve hydrogen gas. And so the glass is fine to use. But in our case, that the flask that you have easily hits 64 psi. Well, you can hear it when you push the top, it releases pressure.
Oh, well, first time I did it, scared the bejeebies out of me. It's what
Yeah.
it pops. It's like opening a bottle of champagne.
Right.
Yeah.
So glass, if it wasn't made thick enough and would shatter. So you kind of know when it's not a hydrogen product because they're made out of glass. That automatically you know it's not a hydrogen product because they're not building up pressure. Ours, you're building up pressure and you would actually shatter. Now, the plastic that we do use is a PPSU, which is the healthiest plastic you could do. There's no
That was
microplastics,
my next question.
none
Okay.
of that stuff. Trust me.
So no
We
carcinogens are getting let off
know.
if this is getting heated. No. Okay.
Yep. So,
Okay.
and you're not heating it. You're just what was very important for us is that we can increase pressure in the bottle up to 200 psi. So we've tested that flask to 200 psi. Glass would never make that, right? And so it will increase. You can tell when it's running because the plastic flexes,
Yeah.
and then when you let go of the pressure, it comes right back.
Yes. Yes.
We had to test multiple plastics because some of them would not come back, which means you've gone to elongation limits, which means you would be releasing things into the water at that point because you've broken up the structure. This particular plastic is the healthiest plastic there is. It's a PPSU if anyone wants to look at it. But the reality is, you're not releasing microplastics. We've already done testing on it. We've already had third-party laboratories test to see if there's anything being introduced to the water. It's not. So, of course, we use plastic, a million things in our life, plastic, and I am an advocate to reduce plastic use and plastic waste for sure. However, in these bottles, it's not possible because
Right.
we don't want shattering. Because I can tell you on our Facebook page, with that exact bottle you have right there, there's people that are like, this bottle shattered when I used it multiple times. I kept pushing the button to try
You're
and get more.
talking about this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's people that post pictures with that shattered in half.
Yeah.
There's people with other bottles shattered. That's the last thing we would want as a company is to harm or do something like that. So we just are using plastic for that reason.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that answer.
Yeah.